Hi, this is Valerie Medina. That's the voice you hear, also known as Chicana Mama. Today is May
11th?
Is it the 11th?
I think so.
Yeah. No, 12th. I don't know.
It's the 12th. So.
We're still sheltering in place. And this is Rachel Ann Palacios, who is an artist in our community in Oakland. And I'm going to interview her for Drawing on Spirit. This is the show, Drawing on Spirit, and I have not done any of these videos for a long time. So I thought I'd try and get to it while we're sheltering in place and at least get one down. So, Rachel Ann, I'm going to ask you the same. First of all, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for agreeing to do this. I'm going to ask you the same 13 questions that I ask everybody. Maybe I should rename the show 13 Questions. But we're here in her studio in Oakland. I want to just kind of do a shot. That's her workbench back there and her altar behind. I want to just go ahead and get, we've got some sage burning and copal. Who is the picture there?
So the woman in the middle in the gray is Ruth Asawa. So she's one of my all-time favorite artists, not only because of her art, but because she had a bunch of kids that she took everywhere with her to do her art, and I take my kids everywhere with me, so I admire her for that. Oh. And then my Nana, who is my biggest supporter, is also up here watching over me, as well as Prince.
Prince. Oh, there's Prince. Oh.
And Kuan Yin. And
where's Prince? There.
Right there.
I'm not getting him in the photo. Oh, there he is.
Yes.
Oh, he's so pretty.
He's lovely.
Okay. All right. So, let me get situated here. Okay, so the first question I'd like to ask you is please describe the work or the intentions or your goals. What do you hope to communicate with the viewer when they see your artwork?
Well, I want my viewer to know that I'm connecting with my culture. I'm a third generation Chicana and Peruana. And so my family came here in the early 1900s, and I'm super far removed from my culture. So I try to do everything that I can to connect with it, and when I do my art, it helps me get in touch with my ancestors and find out more about the artesanos. And so I want people to know that this is part of my life's goal, to connect with my culture. Yeah, I am American, fortunately and unfortunately, but finding my roots is the main goal of why I do my art.
And at what point did you become aware that you were creative?
I would say creativity sparked with me staying home during the summertime with my grandma. We didn't really have that much money to be able to do or buy me art supplies. I mean, art supplies weren't even in our vocabulary. So it was paper bags from Alpha Beta and cereal boxes and dry erase markers my mom brought home from her job and pens. So I just started drawing stuff or making costumes out of the paper bags and cutting things out like shapes and paper dolls. And so that kind of kept me occupied. And then when I got older, in 1992, a really good friend of mine was killed at a party. And so my grandma didn't want me to go down a bad path. I was already like starting to change and turn not so good. And so we went to the library, we found books on Dia de los Muertos and how to honor our ancestors, and so that kind of sparked my interest in creating ofrendas and nichos and other things that connect us to our people that are past and present.
Nice. How did you feed that creativity, and were others around who supported and helped with that?
Well,
like for instance, you've got those paper bags. How did you know what to do with it? Was there someone telling you you could make a face and a puppet, or
No, I mean, that was all that we had. So if I had some scissors, I was cutting. My grandma's like, why are you making all those little papelitos all over the place? You better clean it up after. But I loved cutting shapes out of paper, and I loved clothes and shoes. So I would make random, like, vests and jackets out of the paper bags, and I would get all my shoes and pretend that I had a store. And
so there wasn't anyone kind of guiding you
Nope.
in a certain way to make art. It was all coming from within you.
Just keeping myself occupied. I didn't have any siblings until I was 5, so I would say from the age of like 3 to like when I started going to school, that's all I did, because I wasn't allowed to play outside because we lived in Oakland and it wasn't too cool, and so that's how I kept occupied.
How has your artwork evolved over time?
Well, being able to go to Mexico and see the real deal of what I'm inspired by has helped me kind of step up my game and make things a little bit more refined. A lot of what I do is folk art, so it makes me feel comfortable to leave it as is sometimes and not have to make it perfect. Like, I didn't go to art school, and nothing's wrong with that, but I just didn't want to tame or tamper my inspiration from my heart and my soul and have somebody tell me, oh, it's not perfect, it's not this, you should use these colors, because that's not where it's coming from. And so that's with that. As far as like refining it and making it better, I mean, every day that I wake up and I have an opportunity to do art, like now, since we can't go out, I'm really focusing on honing my skills down and just being easy on myself when I don't like certain things that I make.
Are you learning anything? And during this time that you've been sheltering in place,
Yeah.
have you learned anything new?
I actually have. There's a few techniques with the repujado that I do that I've learned to, like if I'm gonna frame it and it's smashing in the frame and it ruins like my little embossing, I can fill the back with Fixall so that it stays hard and pronounced. I'm also learning how to kind of trace over the lines and go over certain things. I've been watching this one artist in Chile. She's Mexican, but she moved to Chile to do her art, and she's been really helpful and super open and kind, answering my questions when I send her emails and just doing little short videos on the techniques that she does. And so she's very, like I said, supportive, because sometimes, like with all of us artists get territorial sometimes about our stuff. Even I do sometimes, but then sharing is caring, and just being able to help somebody feel more creative and inspired, I think, is the way to go, especially right now. So I'm grateful and honored that Montserrat, or La Flor de Frida, has been kind of guiding me and answering questions.
Well, you know, from my perspective, there's not a lot of artists in this area, San Francisco Bay Area, San Jose, as far as that are doing what you're doing. You're very unique in what you do. That's why I love to see when you're selling out on the street and stuff like that. Try to pick up your something from you, because it's unusual. So that's what I love about it.
That makes me happy. There's a lot of people, like certain stuff that I started to make, other people make, and then people get confused. Did you make that? Did you copy that from so and so? And I don't want that vibe. Like there's all enough room to share.
Exactly. But we also don't exist in a vacuum, and we are influenced by things that we see. I'm so influenced by photography, and so photographs that I see and stuff like that, or other people's artwork too, and it's like, oh, I want to try that style.
Right.
So yeah, you try to put a different twist on it and be unique, but sometimes things, especially an untrained eye, someone's thought they saw my artwork on a bus a couple of months back. No, that wasn't mine. I wish.
Right.
Okay. So, what are your favorite materials and why?
Well, I love metal. For some reason, I'm attracted to metal. It gives me like a sense of power, because this isn't a really feminine art to do. Like in Mexico, all the artesanos are men working in their studios, excuse me, and in the talleres. And so they're like hammering away and firing away. And I go in there asking my questions, and they're like, why do you do this? And I'm like, because I like to. And it's because, I don't know, I just feel empowered by working with something non-traditional for women to be working on. And so metal, I would say, so it's this. And then...
And you buy that in sheets?
I buy it in sheets, so I'll get a whole roll of it, 50 feet. Cut it up, excuse me, in the different sizes. And then at first I was using pencils, and I would save candy apple and hot dog corn
Oh,
dog
yeah,
skewers, just
yeah.
because, I mean, you use what you got, right?
Right.
And so now I'm starting to learn how to use all these other, like, tools for ceramics, but they work really well for repujado too.
Yeah.
So now I'm feeling like I'm stepping up my game.
Oh, that's nice. And in what ways does inspiration show up for you?
You know what? I see patterns and designs in everything now. A lot of it is influenced by the henna art that I do.
Yeah.
And growing up in Oakland, our little corner liquor store was owned by people from Saudi Arabia, so they always had these designs on their hands. And I was always interested in what the mom had on her hands, and my mom would never let me ask because she thought it was rude. Mind you, this is the 70s and 80s when it's not something super common that you'd see at the street fairs.
Right.
And so seeing her hands and then seeing the patterns in people's doorways or on people's shirts or, you know, like on gates and stuff, that kind of inspires me to, like, I'm going to go home and I'm going to try to draw those, like, swirly lines or curves and whatnot. So I see art everywhere.
So what would you say inspiration is at its core?
Right now, just waking up and, you know, taking a walk outside and paying attention to the things that I just walk by on a daily basis because I'm rushing off to go teach a class or I'm taking my kids to school. But now I'm really paying attention to, like, the trees in people's yards. I'm noticing different types of flowers, other things that are hanging in people's doorways that I never paid attention to. So all of that is inspiration
So
come
it's
home.
slowing down and observing and
Yes,
paying attention.
paying attention.
Do you think that that's because of this time we're living in right now? Because of this, everything is at a slowdown?
Definitely. I mean, before I noticed that I was in such a rush to get here, get there. I mean, I pack and I'm super prepared. I'm OCD that way, but I'm, like, so focused on what I'm doing that I don't pay attention to other things because I want to get what I'm trying to do done or I want to get to where I'm trying to go. And so now I'm more aware of stuff and just health-wise too, just taking, like, slowing down and noticing how my body is feeling, like, more rested and less rushed and anxious. I mean, I'm a little bit anxious going out, but
Yeah. I think you need to be preserving a little bit at this time. You
Right.
Be careful. 'Cause
Right.
Some people are not. Some people are really
We're
not
not
nice.
go into that. Yes.
I got into it. I cussed some guy out because he ran by me and he goes, "Were you looking at your phone?" I'm
Oh
like,
my gosh.
I was checking my health numbers. My phone. Okay. So, give me an example of when inspiration entered into your creative space and provided you with some direction.
Let's see. You know what? Last week I've had so much time to just do whatever that I'm finding all these unfinished things that I've been doing. And there's another artist that I collaborate with, Lily Lanier. We do, like, a lot of circular mandala stuff inspired by Yayoi Kusama, who's, like, this dot artist from Japan.
Yes, I know who that is.
I
Yeah.
love her. And so we started doing, like, these crazy, we would just paint circles, and then I would do my henna designs, and then she would add to it, and then we would just pass it back and forth.
Oh, yeah. That's neat.
And so I found these circles again, but I made a repujado on top of it. I've never put repujado on my art before, or on these circles before, so I'll show you what it is. And then I'm actually going to pass it to her when I'm done so she can add her magic to it. And then, I don't know, people might want to buy it, or
Yeah.
they could be gifts. But we just got, I don't know, this is something new that I'm trying because
That's
nobody's
neat.
telling me that I can't do it.
Right. I know. That's kind of amazing when you get in your head a certain direction and, well, there's nothing says that you can't do it. Sometimes you run into obstacles with the materials,
Right.
but, and then you make mistakes or you don't like how it comes out. But
Right.
I think it's worth it to push through and do the process of it anyway.
Yes.
How do you make room for creativity or hold space in your life and allow it to come in? What sorts of things do you do so that you are open?
Before, since I would set up at lots of festivals, I would they're way far in advance, so I'd plan my time out. I'd get my calendar. I'm like, this week, I'm going to do 3 hours a day of this, that, and that just to get it done.
Oh, wow, you are OCD.
I am OCD. But I notice, like, well, with kids, stuff isn't ever in concrete. Like, you have to be flexible, one.
Yeah.
And then two, what I notice is when I put myself under pressure like that and I make myself do things, I don't feel inspired. Like, I feel pressured to make stuff. And when I make things, I have to go back to when I was little and just bring stuff out of the air when I'm feeling inspired. So right now I'm feeling pretty inspired. Like, I can't wait to get out here and start doing stuff, but I'm homeschooling my kids and teaching online classes. And so I piled that on like the 4th week that we were into this, and I was like, you know what, I don't really have to be doing this. I can slow it down. I can not take as many like Zoom call things. And so I make it a point to be out here at least 2 hours a day, whether I wake up and just get out of the bed and come out here when everybody's asleep, or when my partner comes home, it's his shift for the kids, I'll just leave. I'm like, I'm off the clock now, and I'll just come outside and I'll do my stuff. And everybody knows to give me my space. Like, my kids are pretty mellow. They want to help, so sometimes I'll let them help and add certain things to this, and that helps too, that they're interested and not feeling like I'm ignoring them to do my art. So
now, you being a teacher, and I know you teach children, have you developed a language to explain your art, or how do you talk with words about what you do when sometimes what you do you just feel?
Right. Well, I tell the kids straight out and straight up how it is, and there's always room, like when it's class time and we're doing our art, I invite them to ask me questions while we're doing the art, so that they don't feel like I'm just talking at them, and they don't have any kind of like, well, what is this for? Well, why do you use this? Well, do I have to do it this way? So there's always room for flexibility. I learn from them. Also, they might discover a new technique and we'll like name it something.
Oh, that's neat.
So there's a word, like this little instrument here is called a pouncer. I learned it from another fellow artist. But we don't call it, the kids think it looks like a spur. So we just call it spurring.
Oh.
Just random little things like that, because they're not going to remember pound. Like, that's a technical word. So.
Right. Okay. So when you're talking to your patrons, say you are doing a show and you've got someone staring intently at your work and wondering, and they're thinking about your work because they're looking at it. And so how do you, if you were to come up to a person while they're looking at your work, how would you talk about your work?
Well, I'd ask them, like, what are they seeing? I don't really want to tell them that a lot of times they don't know that it's my work, so I want to just get the general raw.
Yeah, the raw reaction.
The raw reaction. And most of the time it's good. So I'm just like, how do you, what does this make you feel? Does it remind you of anything? Have you seen this type of art before? And then we'll get into, well, who made it? Well, what is? So I'm like, oh, I do it. I also give classes. If you want to learn how to do it, also, it's accessible. I want to be able to share and help people find their creativity too. So, and that usually works out. Like, people will come to a library program, or call me and ask me when I'm doing like programs around, so that they can come and check them out.
That's neat. How does inspiration, creativity, or muse interfere with the basic laws of the material that you work with?
Well, that's funny that you say that, because I've been looking at a lot of repujado now that I have so much time to be on Instagram and Facebook or whatever. I try not to troll. I just post and leave, just because stuff makes me so annoyed. But finding like connections and finding art that's similar to mine, or things that I want to try, it's like sometimes I'll want to do a portrait. Like, I'd love to trace a Frida, but I don't know how to do that. Like, I don't draw people well at all with a pen and paper or pencil and paper, and so I get intimidated. But someday I'll do I'll do a portrait of Frida or something. Like I have my collaborator who I did this with, Lily, is an amazing portrait artist, like watercolor, pencil, pens, and she did this crazy portrait of me in metal. And I was like, oh my God, how did you do that?
That's cool.
It's actually.
Do you have it here?
Yes.
Oh wow, that's gorgeous.
So she made it,
and then
in
she painted on
brass,
top.
And she painted on top. But I could never get this detail. Like I can draw eyes and a mouth and a nose, but this is like a real picture.
Well, I think it's the same technique you would use with when you're using a pattern.
Right.
So you just put the photo on top and do the outlines of the mouth, where the eyes are.
But it's more than that.
It's more detailed. Yeah. She was actually following shadows and everything like that.
Yeah,
and then
that's
she painted in on them.
That's what I need to work on. I don't want to say that I'm bad at it. I can work on it.
So how does it feel to follow the creative path and describe that feeling?
It feels really good. Like, I mean, in the fast-paced world that we live in, we don't really give ourselves enough time to do things that we're interested in. Like, sometimes I'll see people crocheting, and it makes me feel good because it just reminds me of, like, my mother-in-law, or it just reminds me of people that are slowing down to do, like, a hobby and a craft. And back in the old times, which isn't that far away, I mean, people did, like, needlepoint and
Right.
crocheting, and so when I think of that, it just gives me a little bit of comfort. And so just going back to that time and having thoughts of just relaxing and taking in, like, what you're inspired by and dedicating creative space to yourself every now and then, it just makes it, I don't know, it just makes me feel really good. And right now, like I said, since we have so much time on our hands to do whatever we need to, it's a good time to just tap into that.
So my last question is, what would you say to someone who may be seeking to create or tap into their own creativity?
What would I say? Let's see. There's a lot of stuff I could say. I mean, go with how you're feeling. You know, for me personally, if I get inspired to do something, I'll pop maybe 3 or 4 of them off in like a short span of time. Just like quick, either sketch or like put it together really quickly. And then the one that I feel most connected to, I'll like start with that and I'll focus on that. So, I mean, that could be a number of things too. It doesn't just have to be the one art that you do. Like, I have my repujado here. The wind.
Yeah.
But I also, I also like to do braiding of fabric, and I want to figure out how to do, what is it, the huichol paintings?
Oh.
No, like painting with yarn.
Oh, yeah, those are cool.
No, those are super cool. So it's just stuff like that. If you're feeling inspired, just try it. I mean, nobody's going to judge you right now.
Okay, well, I've noticed you're drawn to traditional art, creative things.
Yes.
That come from an area of the world. Why do you think you're drawn to that?
Well, part of me feels like I have random ancestors all over the world that are speaking to me that want to come back out.
Mm-hmm.
It might sound funny to people that don't believe in stuff, but I truly believe, like, as a kid, I wanted to be Chinese, I wanted to be Indian, and just going into other people's houses, I'm like, oh my God, who's this elephant with makeup on and like nail polish? This is awesome. Or your red altar has oranges on it. Who is that glowing person on there? And so I wanted to find out more about these people and why they worship. It's like they're temples and they're worshiping these different like icons and gods and goddesses, and so that is kind of the root of my art, I feel. Just the different gods and goddesses from around the world, and just finding out, hey, I'm the goddess of the sun, or I'm the god of thunder, or just that kind of stuff. And those are natural elements that we have with us every day. Like, it's of the earth. So,
yeah, the natural world.
And so that inspires me. And it's not something that people can judge or take away, because it's real.
And if you maintain it inside of you, no one can take that away from you. That knowledge, that understanding, that connection with that.
Right. And it's also like going even further, it's how I am spiritual.
Right.
I mean, I don't go to church. I grew up Catholic, and I'm semi-traumatized from all the things that I had to do. And I mean, I just got into this conversation with my mom a couple months ago. It's like, well, my creator wouldn't have had to die for sins. I'm like, what did I do to sin? I just came out of your body.
Right.
And so it's just like thinking about that, and then just going back in history and thinking about how stuff was, and how I'm trying to go away from that and just be positive and put light and good into the world and not have any kind of repercussions, or like just keep putting out good and light, and don't
be kind and love.
Yes. Don't circulate bad energy.
Right. And and that stuff like that comes from fear and ugliness.
And just bad experiences too. Like, stuff happens to everybody, but if you just finally just let it go and move on, you can be harmonious, and you can be very, like, I don't know, I'm feeling very zen these days.
Mm-hmm.
After having kids especially, I can't act all wild and crazy how I used to be. I wasn't always good. But I didn't get to that point where I had to go to jail or have my shot taken. So
don't make the chola come out of me.
No, please don't. Because there is something here too.
Deep inside.
Deep inside.
Okay, Rachel. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the time to answer my questions, and I love that we got to see a little bit of your artwork and see where you create. I'm just going to take a shot of that.
Thank you, Valerie. I appreciate you being in my life and being so open and just being as creative as you are, and all of your dancing, and just being a local person. I admire you, and I appreciate everything that you do. So thank you for creating your page on Facebook. Thank you for always supporting me and being in my art shows, and just, accepting me for who I am, and let it be.
Just love, Rachel. Just love.
It is. Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot.